All right, let's now speak to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, right off the bat, we'll get even to China in just a moment, but I want to stay with something that the DIRCO Minister just said. It's that the impact of what is currently taking place geopolitically is also widening the political divisions as well. And it kind of speaks, to a hint of possibly how robust these engagements were behind closed doors, as he said.
Yes, they were quite robust. You are correct. The meeting came at a time where there's divisions in terms of what's happening globally, with the President of the United States of America gravitating towards Russia. And we know that with the European Union community and the developed North, Russia is a no-no. And therefore, there was going to be contestation of influence in terms of what needs to be done on these issues. You also have a situation where the past 3 years, South Africa has been under tremendous pressure from the very same United States of America that it must abandon its relationship with Russia. And therefore, this time around, now you have America saying, we are going to mend our relations with Russia. And therefore, where does that leave those who were very vocal, even mobilizing during elections, which also contributed, by the way, to the outcome of the elections in South Africa, as there was vast interest in our elections in terms of ensuring that the foreign policy of South Africa gravitate towards the developed North. On the other hand, we had a situation where China became a voice of reason. It did happen. When you look at the presentation by China, China was reconciliatory and trying to bring all stakeholders together. And this happens at a time where economically China is very, very powerful, particularly in relation to South Africa and China. China now being our largest trading partner, not only us and many other countries as well. And therefore, China coming in, closing that gap that looks like it's developing based on the Trump's approach to international matters and global trade. The other important issue is that there were robust discussions around transformation of the United Nations. You know that there's a call that the UN must transform, particularly the Security Council. Earlier on, the French Foreign Affairs Minister saying they support the transformation of the UN and that Africa must have 2 permanent seats. You also have a situation where you had to deal with the conflict around the world, particularly the war in Ukraine. There you have America, you have European Union not seeing eye to eye currently with the European Union member states, most of them rallying behind Ukraine. We have Donald Trump saying Ukraine has caused all this mess and therefore talking to Russia, and therefore that tension again playing itself here in South Africa. And I think it was good to have foreign affairs ministers discussing all these issues, including the war in Sudan, the conflict in the Middle East, and also the DRC, so that when you get to November, you don't have a situation where you are still dealing with these issues. You can focus at the task at hand, because the main aim of the G20 is to bring countries together to look at the global challenges, particularly in terms of trade and development. And therefore, you don't want the political issues to dominate the discussions. This also will help, because next week when the finance ministers and central bank governors are meeting, they can focus on the transformation of the financial system, not these hardcore global geopolitical challenges.
And, lots to talk about as far as what you've just said. We'll get to the Ukraine president and our president in just a moment, but I want to stay with something that you said around, China. And we talk more about this, assumption that maybe now we may see more of a leadership role that they may be taking, given what is taking place between South Africa and the US. And I hope let's just expand on that, because it may even go further than this?
Yes, you know already South Africa and China during the BRICS summit, they agreed to strengthen their relations, trade relations, political relations, including arts and culture. You'd recall that the president visited China during the summit of African heads of state and government in China, that FOCAC. But the focus also on the margins was that state visit. And therefore China winning the hearts and minds of African countries in relation to trade, but also politically, as I pointed out, China took a reconciliatory tone when other countries were at each other's throat in terms of these issues, particularly the European Union member countries in relation to what's happening in the Ukraine and also in relation to Russia and America. You had China becoming a more cool-headed country on all these issues, and that assisted South Africa to be able to steer the ship, because you had this powerful country with economic muscle speaking. And I think where the Secretary of State of the US is now, I think there's regret that he should be here to kind of push the interest of the US, and therefore you had China filling the gap, and it's not gonna be easy going forward. We are going to see more of China filling the gap, not only in terms of the geopolitical issues, but in relation to trade and investment around the world.
And there's another developing story that Minister Ronald Lamola says they did speak about to push the African agenda. That is, yes, the developments in Sudan, issues around the climate change, but there's also what's taking place in the DRC, as well as the UN is warning that as the M23 is advancing, there might be a regional conflict in that part of the world.
That was the danger from day one, and I think that is why South Africa, under the leadership of President Mandela, when he was head of state, President Thabo Mbeki, and now President Ramaphosa, have been pushing for a more reconciliatory solution towards all the Congolese, a dialogue with all the Congolese, and a peace process that will lead to lasting solution. Because if you don't deal with that issue, that problem, it's likely going to engulf the whole region, the Great Lakes region. We saw some reports, unconfirmed reports, that now DRC is looking to other countries to help with support military. And you know, some of these countries are very unethical. They can go and fight side by side with Congo, even though they are not part of the region, because there's money, there are resources in Congo. The agreement will be, we'll give you our resources. So it is becoming a danger not only to Congo, but also to the region, and by extension to the continent. When you now see countries fighting in the Congo and there is no proper way of managing this issue. That was the key issue on the table. But I think we are going to see more tension playing itself in the coming days, particularly when you see countries who want to undermine the EAC and the SADC processes, because the EAC and SADC have given a marching order. Get to the tables, include all, and speak and find a solution, not military build-up and military bulliness in that country, which may spill over to other countries.